it's been really a learning experience for me to be involved in the Fully Alive program, and just to chart the developmental approach that's taken in it. I think it's excellent. I mean, I really do. My own kids did have an earlier version, many years ago, and I thought it was very good even then. I think the changes that have been incorporated, and the factual information that's put across is absolutely essential. I know there are some parents who think, oh, she's too young, all that kind of thing. But I think when we're dealing, I think the care that's been taken to make sure that it's age appropriate, so that developmental aspect, is really essential. And I've always thought myself, it's so much better that kids have, correct wording, that kind of thing, than the playground business. I mean, that's going to happen anyway. But then to have it in school when you're talking about it, and I guess it's because I've always been involved in pro-life movements one way or another myself, in the best sense of the word, I like to think. And so when young kids are learning from a very early age about what's developing in mummy, and what it's like right from the beginning, I can't help but think that must give them a much better sense of what we're talking about when they're older. Those kids are not going to be the way some of the students that I knew at university who would dismiss things like abortion, oh, it's just a clump of cells, all that kind of thing. I think they really thought that at the time. There was a lot of factual information that we didn't have. But since the whole science of embryology, etc., and things like fetal surgery, where people see doctors operating and babies in the womb, there's no way you can just say, this is not a person until you're delivered. So I really appreciate that aspect in terms of, if you like, that respect for procreativity that's built into it, but in a very factual and non-preachy way, Good facts make good ethics. I mean, I really do believe that, and the more facts I think the more we know factually, the better our ethical decisions, I think, should be. And so to incorporate those, I think it's a really good program. Also, the way they approach that burgeoning sexuality for younger teenagers, it kind of hits it right on, doesn't back away from it. It's human nature. I really think. I have always thought, in fact, that Catholic schools are the ones that should be talking about that kind of thing. In times past, I think there was a reluctance to talk about some of these issues. Maybe that was just part of the culture then. And people will say, well, kids know so much now. Well, they know a lot, but they really need to hear these things talked about sort of respectfully, accurately, and just with a sense that gives them that measure of not just respect, but almost control themselves, because they understand, maybe, I guess that's part of the hope anyway, that they'll understand a lot more about all that's involved in not just the procreative side then, but baby development's really important, but also just that relationship, among themselves.
As you know, Fully Alive finishes at grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to ask you to comment. Do you see a need for a high school version of that program?
Very definitely. Yeah, I do. I really think that young people, now I'm talking about high school students, they do know a lot, and many of them are sexually active and all that goes with that, and many of them are not, so I mean that whole awareness level, so many of them, they've kind of run out of the stable before they're fully groomed, but emotionally I think there's always, there's a moral aspect to it as well, of course, so I maybe shouldn't just talk emotionally, but for young people to continue to have an opportunity to discuss sexuality and relationships, and not just consequences, if you like, but that whole emphasis on this is something that's really important for your growth as an individual, is really meant to be helping you as individuals and then in relationships, I think that's the age that we could build on a lot more in, you know, allowing them to be able to talk openly and freely, but still within some kind of parameters. Now, if I bring it back to Catholic teaching, I can understand, just as talking with adults, that it's really quite difficult sometimes for people to see, you know, either what do they know, or what do they have to say, or why does it matter. But in fact, you know, I do know that they do know a lot, they have a lot to say, and a lot of it does matter. So to be able to get that teaching across in that more fully alive way of doing things, I think it would be doing our Catholic high school students a big favour.